What's up, y'all? TBrown31 here with JaboctheGreat. Welcome back to The Last Word. First up today, we got Oregon and Ohio State, number 2 versus number 3 from Saturday night. This was a huge game. Turned out to be a pretty good game with Oregon, winning this one 32-31. We're going to talk about the end with a little bit of controversy there, some decisions made by some Ohio State players and staff there. But yeah, I mean, this was a good game, good win for Oregon. And they move up to number 2 right behind Texas.
Yeah, this is a big one. I called Oregon in this one, and I narrowly escaped with the win
Yeah.
on this pick. Oregon similarly, narrowly escaped with the win. Great game, big game, big noon game. Obviously, it was 2 versus 3. Ohio State didn't fall that far. I think they went to 4th. Makes sense, right? Played a good game, didn't get crushed by any means. Yeah, I think this one was just fun. This is kind of what you want to see in college football when these two, high-ranked teams match up. So we'll look at it on paper here for a second. Dillon Gabriel went 23 for 34, 341 yards. He threw 2 touchdowns and no picks. Rushed for 34 yards. Got himself a touchdown on the ground as well. Jordan James led the Ducks on the ground with 115 yards. He also got himself a touchdown. Dillon Gabriel, had 32 yards on 34, was second rushing, and that's pretty much it for the Oregon run game. But, 115 yards on 23 carries for Jordan James is certainly satisfactory, I'm sure, for most coaches. Especially to come out with a win. And then in the air, Evan Stewart also had a big day, 7 receptions for 149 yards. He got a touchdown. He had a 69-yard reception. Tez Johnson had 75 yards and a touchdown. He had 48 yards for his longest reception. So big ones for them there. And then Terrence Ferguson was third for Oregon with 62 yards, and he had a 32-yard reception. And then Trayshawn Holden had 1 reception for 32 yards as well. So a lot of big passes from that Oregon offense to really get them going. And then of course Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson get the air touchdowns. Jordan James and Dillon Gabriel get it done on the ground. Derek Harmon recovers a fumble, and then Atticus Sappington, which honestly he missed a field goal, but honestly I just kind of had to throw this on here just because his name was Atticus Sappington. No hate to him. I just was going through, and I don't even think I really noticed while the game was on, but I was like, no way that's his that's his name. But it is. Atticus Sappington missed a field goal early on in the game, went 2 for 3, and then another kicker came in and kicked an extra point later on in the game. But Sappington hit his other 2 field goals and hit his 1 extra point shot. So not a horrible outing for them, and they won. So the missed field goal, doesn't amount to a whole lot. For the Ohio State, Will Howard, who we'll talk about later on, actually had a pretty good game. 28 for 35, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Can't get a whole lot better than that. That's pretty close to a perfect game as you can ask for. Obviously, he lost, and then we'll talk about the ending point again. But yeah, not a whole lot to be upset for Will Howard on the whole. Trevion Henderson led the Buckeyes in rushing with 87 yards. Did not find the end zone, but Quinshon Judkins had 11 carries for 23 yards, and he found the end zone. And Will Howard himself also found the end zone on 13 yards on 9 carries. For the receiving game, Jeremiah Smith led the Buckeyes, had 100 yards on 9 receptions, got himself a touchdown. And then Emeka Egbuka had 93 yards and a touchdown as well. Games look super similar as far as the quarterback stats and who brought in what. But here's kind of where we get into where it changes a little bit. Quinshon Judkins did lose a fumble, right? So I said Derek Harmon recovered an Ohio State fumble, had to come from somebody. It would be Judkins. Will Howard also fumbled, but it wasn't a lost fumble, so nothing big there. No interceptions this game. No weird stuff for Ohio State's kicking. Just weird stuff for Ohio State's quarterback at the end of the game. And I'm sure we can talk about some other things that went wrong for Ohio State in this game. Again, it's a matchup. You're just above Oregon. It's 2 versus 3. It's really anybody's game here. Back and forth pretty much the whole time. Not really many moments where it looks like one team is going to pull away and take it from the other. At one point, Oregon's up 14-6, but even that, even that is not like the craziest. Ohio State's up 14-6. Oregon brings it back 15-14, and they start going back. So it never really looks like one of these teams is stealing it from the other one. They're kind of fighting the whole time, and then eventually Oregon scores. Ohio State gets a field goal to take the lead back. Oregon gets a field goal. Ohio State has a pretty decent drive in action until they get some incomplete passes and some penalties. Adds up, and then all you need to do is get down for a field goal. You're down 1 point, and Will Howard does get down, unfortunately, before he ever got past the line of scrimmage, as we talked about just before we started recording, time had already expired. So at that point, the only option for Will Howard was to get all the way down the field and get a touchdown. And instead, he slides, thinking that there's time on the clock, thinking that he's able to get his kicking team out there to get a field goal. Reminiscent of J.R. Smith on the Cavs, of course, not knowing that they were up. I'm sure Will Howard knew they were down. He just did not realize that the time had run out, which is, you just can't do that. You got to be a little more spatially aware. Got to be aware of where you're at in the game, especially in a 1-point game, when you know that at most, starting on this play, you've got, like 6 seconds? So, not great for Will Howard on this one. Gets a 12-yard carry out of it, but it does not mean a whole lot for him in the long shot. He runs the timeout. The clock is gone. Ohio State loses this game 31-32. Not the biggest loss for them, right? They're going to fall to 4. They're still fine. They look on track for the playoffs, and they didn't look bad, in this game. But boneheaded play, as you put it right before we started recording, gives Oregon the win. Truthfully, I mean, in a good back and forth game, all it took was one big mistake. Maybe it could have been Oregon's missed field goal early on. Instead, it ends up being Will Howard not knowing what time was on the clock and running it out.
I guess turnabout is fair play because you mentioned neither team was really stealing any a victory from each other. Look, that first drive, Ohio State absolutely stole a play. So they had this huge play all the way down to the Oregon 20. Receiver for Ohio State. Usually, whenever it's like a simultaneous catch, they get, it's awarded to the receiver, blah, blah, blah. But he caught it. But like before he really actually caught it and went down on the ground, the cornerback took it out. And even if they, let's say they review it and they say like, hey, nah, this is it. The receiver that was down, blah, blah, blah. He had control for long enough for it to be down. Ohio State possession, which he didn't. Okay, but they didn't even stop to review it. Like, they just let it go. Ohio State, of course, they get up to the line of scrimmage fast, run a play, and we see this all the time whenever there's a questionable kind of decision on the field in real time. They're moving fast, and the officials, they may mess things up. It's kind of hard to see because we see it so many times where they both come down with the ball, but then the defender tries to rip it out at the last second. It's like, oh, I got it, but that was that was an interception for Oregon. And then the fact that it didn't even review it, like, that bothered me. And like I don't have any like feelings towards Ohio State or Oregon either way, but like that was a problem for me. And I guess the only people that might disagree would be Ohio State fans, because otherwise, like you have to at least review it. I mean, if you come to a different decision at the end, whatever, but not reviewing it and then them getting a touchdown off of that, like. That felt like BS to start. They do get a fumble, like you mentioned, on their next drive for Ohio State. And then Oregon does score off of that, but they fail a 2-point conversion, which wasn't supposed to be a 2-point conversion. They mess up there on the extra point. The kicker, he's just, I can't remember if it was a holder or kicker. One of them, they had to pick it up and basically just do a heave into the end zone. Not good, not what you want to have on your extra points. So that kind of screwed Oregon there. And then, like you mentioned, missing the field goal. So I'd say the one time it felt like it was like maybe a little bit lost for Oregon was when it was 14-6. You just had a couple of miscues there where you could have just easily been up or at least tied. But instead, you're down by 8 points. But, for the rest of the game, like, they were pretty solid. They had long drive, near the end of the game where they went for it. They decided to go for it on 4th and goal. I mean, based on the flow of the game, Ohio State had just scored. And that drive took up so much time. Like, so maybe if they had gotten down earlier, I think it would have been different. And they had a huge play on 4th down. So they had already gone for it anyway. But I don't know, because I mean it's still 3rd quarter, right? So I mean it's like I don't know about going for it there. Like I just don't know. So you come away with nothing there, and again the momentum kind of switches to Ohio State because they just scored. You take a long drive, taking up pretty much the whole third quarter, come up empty, kind of rough there. But next couple drives, they go down and do their thing. They don't score on 4th and goal the other way, so or they don't go for it, I should say, which since you only do need a field goal, that's fine. And I think doing the quick math here, I'm trying to see like if it would have mattered. Um, I'm not sure if Ohio State went down and scored a touchdown. I have to do the math on that real quick, but not going for it there, just taking the field goal, fine. But that last drive for Ohio State is kind of the big story. It's just kind of bad time management there. So you had a huge play on 2nd down to Jeremiah Smith. You're thinking, all right, we're going to be in pretty good position here to kind of end this game. Instead, you get a penalty, pass interference, right? So you get backed up. And I'm thinking what happened here is that Ohio State did not understand that the time would be running here. Because when they went back, like the clock, because it was a stopped clock, started running it again, and all that time was going off, and they were just like they weren't being urgent. So I'm thinking they didn't realize that time was running. And then just they do all that, just throw an incomplete pass, and it's like you would have just been better just throwing it out of bounds as soon as you snapped it or spiking or do anything. But you waste that time, you waste 10 seconds, which at that point in the game when there's only 20 left, that's valuable time. Funnily enough, you'd end up getting a penalty the other way on 3rd down, which helps them because obviously if it would have been 4th down there, they wouldn't have had any chance to even get in field goal range. And like you mentioned, Will Howard, I don't want to beat him up, but he drops back, can't find anything, tick, tick, tick. Once he makes the decision to start running, there's about 3 seconds left. You still have a timeout, but at that point, there's really you've already lost right there. Because unless you're going to run 40 yards down the field, you're not doing anything. So he hits the line of scrimmage. 2 seconds left, and the line of scrimmage was a 38. So I mean, even then, that would be a pretty long field goal for a college kicker. So I think it probably would have been a lost cause right there even if he went down. Like it still probably would have been a miss, but if he went down at the line of scrimmage, take a timeout, you get a chance. But he keeps going, and it's like I think he legitimately just forgot. And the way he came up, holding his head, and he's like, I think he definitely forgot. So it does suck. That's kind of the way it ended, but you got to be more cognizant of the time. I mean, that's 2 times in just a couple of plays that they weren't aware of the time there, and that's not the fault of Oregon. I mean, Oregon, they played a pretty good game outside of some miscues here, and in these tight matchups, like those are going to be the things that win or lose you a game. So, hats off to Oregon for the way they played, and at the end of the day, Ohio State, like you said, they only dropped the 4. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'll be surprised if they lose another game this year. Even if this was their first legitimate big test, it's not like they lost by 30. So yeah, I think they'll be fine the rest of the year. Big win for Oregon. I mean, logically, like maybe they should have gone up to 1. If you're 3 and you beat 2, should you move up to 1? Alabama basically did the same thing a couple weeks ago. But I guess because Texas just embarrassed Oklahoma, they didn't. But hey, Oregon, they came out. You got that pick right. They did what they had to do to win.
Yeah, I think Oregon maybe could have moved to 1 here, but last time we let that happen, right? Alabama beats Georgia, they make Alabama number 1, and they immediately lose. So maybe the committee was like, we'll just move them up to 2 and let Texas hold on to that spot for a little bit, especially because of Texas' performance. Yeah, I think you pretty much hit everything I would add. I would just kind of back you up here at the end. Had Oregon went for it and got a touchdown, I think the best they could have had is 36, and maybe if you have a 2-point conversion, you could get it up to 37, which puts you in range where a field goal won't beat you. But it doesn't, a touchdown is still a danger. But what I do think for Oregon here is that it's a risk that pays off. right? You kick that field goal and we're gonna have a 1 point lead, but we just have to hope that we can stop them from doing something on that last drive, and it's a big risk, especially with the way this game went. Or Ohio State didn't have many drives where they didn't get what they wanted. Neither did Oregon. A lot of their mistake-filled drives were kind of earlier on, and then I think you said it best. Ohio State gets the ball, and just two weird mistakes with the time, in one drive, and that's all it takes. Oregon's risk pays off. 32-31 victory. They move up to two. Pretty big for them. Ohio State gonna have to look back at this one. A lot of things that in the discipline of football they can improve on, but same with Oregon. There's a lot of things they can look at this game and go, yeah, we can't do that again. So big game, fun one. I think this was a great choice for the college game day matchup. Obviously, it was the biggest ranked matchup this week, so I think it was good. I think it delivered, and I think both these teams can kind of hold their heads up a little high going forward, and at least know that they didn't put on the. You get these ranked matchups that are high, and sometimes you get these, and sometimes you get like a 50-2 kind of game. So at least Ohio State didn't get blown out by 30. They played well. This easily could have been a win. A few mistakes went the wrong way. So big props to Oregon. Came out, played a good game, stayed on fire. Put those early mistakes behind them, and came out and got a big win with some big risks.